Okay, students, so this is BCHM231, Lecture 2, Physiology of Adrenal Glands, Part 1st, and I am Dr. Musaddiq Ibrahim, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry, Cost. So, in this lecture, we will be discussing the functioning or the roles of the adrenal glands which are performed by adrenal glands. So moving towards the adrenal glands topic, so the topics to be discussed, they include types of adrenal glands, location of adrenal glands, functions of adrenal glands, the hormones which are secreted by adrenal glands, and chemistry of adrenal glands. So moving towards the location of adrenal glands, that where they are present in the human body. So looking at this picture, you can see that the adrenal glands, they are present on top of the each kidney, and this is the location where the adrenal glands are present. Now if you enlarge this image, so this is the enlarged image, and you can see that there are a pair of adrenal glands. So one is right adrenal glands present on top of the right kidney, and then you have left adrenal gland which is present on top of the left kidney, and the rest you have the left renal artery, the left renal vein, which are connected to the left kidney, and then on the right hand side you have right renal artery and right renal vein, which are supplying blood and taking the deoxygenated blood back from the right kidney. And then you have in the middle the inferior vena cava and the abdominal aorta, which are also responsible for the transport of blood or supply of blood to the kidney. Right, so the adrenal glands, if you look at the cross section, so this is the cross section area of the adrenal glands, and there are two regions in the adrenal glands. One is the adrenal cortex, which is the outer region of the adrenal gland, and the other one is the adrenal medulla, which is the inner region of the adrenal gland. So let's see that if you magnify this cross section, so then you can see that one of the portion of the adrenal glands is the adrenal cortex, which is this one, and then further this adrenal cortex has three regions. So the first one, the outer region, is zona glomerulosa, and the middle region is the zona fasciculata, and the interior region is zona reticularis. And then after this you have the inner portion of the adrenal gland, which is adrenal medulla. So the zona glomerulosa, it secretes a hormone which is known as aldosterone, and the zona fasciculata from the adrenal cortex region secretes two types of hormones which are cortisol and androgens. And in case of adrenal medulla, so it secretes two types of hormones which are epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are also known as the stress hormones or flight or fight hormones, which are secreted during the process of fight or flight. So now moving towards the adrenal gland location. So as we discussed in the previous slides that they are present on top of each kidney. So they are present near the kidneys, and these are two separate gland structures which are present on each kidney, and they are called adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. So the adrenal cortex is the outer region of the adrenal gland, and adrenal medulla is the inner region of the adrenal gland. Now in case of adrenal cortex, there are three zones in adrenal cortex which secrete three types of steroid hormones. So the outer zone, which secretes mineralocorticoids, the middle zone, which secretes glucocorticoids, and the inner zone, which secretes androgens, which are also known as the sex hormones. Now here again you should remember that the outer zone is the zona glomerulosa, and the middle zone is zona fasciculata, and the inner zone is the zona reticularis. So in case of adrenal cortex, it does not receive neural innervation, which means that the nervous system and the neurons, they are not being intervened within the structure of the adrenal cortex, while in case of adrenal medulla, the neural innervation is present in its structure. Now the adrenal cortex must be stimulated hormonally by ACTH, which stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. And again, as we know that the adrenal cortex consists of three zones, which are zona glomerulosa, which is also known as the outer zone, zona fasciculata, which is also known as the middle zone, as we saw the picture in the previous slide, and zona reticularis, which is the inner zone. And these adrenal cortex, they secretes corticosteroids hormones, which we will be discussing in the coming slides. So in case of adrenal cortex, it secretes over 30 different steroid hormones, which are collectively known as corticosteroids. Now, there are different types of corticosteroids which are secreted by the adrenal cortex from the different regions of the adrenal cortex. So the first one is mineralocorticoids, which are secreted by the outer zone of the adrenal cortex, which is also known as the zona glomerulosa. The example of the mineralocorticoids is aldosterone, which maintains electrolyte balance. The second type of corticosteroids are glucocorticoids, which are secreted by the middle region of the adrenal cortex, which is also known as the zona fasciculata. The example of glucocorticoids hormones is cortisol, and the function of cortisol is to stimulate gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis is the synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate moieties or compounds other than carbohydrates like fat molecules or protein molecules. So that process is being stimulated by cortisol. Another function of cortisol is mobilization of free fatty acids either inside the cell or outside the cell. And cortisol also acts as anti-inflammatory agent, and sometimes the synthetic form of cortisol is given to patients who have some inflammation problem or injury, and as a result of using cortisol, the anti-inflammatory response is observed. The third type of corticosteroids are gonadocorticoids, which are secreted by the inner zone of the adrenal cortex, and that zone is also known as zona reticularis. The examples of these hormones secreted are testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And these hormones are also known as the sex hormones. Now, the functions of the adrenal cortex are divided into different regions of the adrenal cortex which secrete different types of hormones. So the first one is zona glomerulosa, and it secretes mineralocorticoids. The example is aldosterone, and the function of aldosterone is to stimulate kidney to reabsorb sodium ions and secrete potassium ions. So that is a very important function of aldosterone, that it allows the kidney to reabsorb sodium so that it is not secreted into the urine, as well as to secrete potassium ions into the urine. Now moving towards zona fasciculata, which is the middle zone of the adrenal cortex, and the hormones which are secreted by this region are glucocorticoids. The example is cortisol, and the function of cortisol is to inhibit glucose utilization as well as stimulate gluconeogenesis. So it means that it reserves the amount of glucose in the human body, so that whenever there is a need of extra glucose in the body, so the glucose is present and it can be utilized. Along with it, it stimulates the gluconeogenesis process, which is, as I said earlier, is the process of synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate molecules like proteins and fats. And then the last one is the zona reticularis, which is the inner zone of the adrenal cortex, and that secretes sex steroids or sex hormones like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, which are involved in sexual behavior, the development of the sexual organs, and other sex related activities. Okay, so now moving towards the sympathetic innervation of adrenal medulla. So now we are talking about adrenal medulla, and here you can see that this is the location of the adrenal gland, and when you enlarge the structure, magnify it, so this is how the adrenal gland looks like. And the cross section of this adrenal gland consists of adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. So the important thing here to remember is that the adrenal cortex is not innervated by the sympathetic ganglion, while in case of adrenal medulla, so that is being innervated with the sympathetic preganglionic neuron. So now if you move towards a further magnified image of the adrenal gland, and here you can see that this is the region of the adrenal medulla, and within this region of the adrenal medulla you have a sympathetic preganglionic neuron. So the sympathetic ganglia, which is also known as the autonomic ganglia, are the ganglia of the sympathetic nervous system. Now the ganglia or the neurons are 20,000 to 30,000 afferent and efferent nerve cell bodies that run along on either side of the spinal cord, and these sensory nervous system neurons, they along with the epinephrine are secreted, and then they reach to the blood vessel, and then from the blood vessel they reach to the site of action. And within the adrenal medulla there is a chromaffin cell also present, and this is the neurotransmitter. And now if we talk about the uh, ganglions and the afferent and efferent neurons, so the afferent neurons, they refer to the nerves and nerve impulses conveying sensory information from the sense organs to the CNS, where CNS stands for Central Nervous System, and the efferent, in physiology, it refers to the nerve and nerve impulses conveying information away from the CNS. So it means that in case of adrenal medulla, you have both efferent and afferent nerve impulses and nerve bodies. So the afferent, they take the nerve impulse from the sense organs to the nervous system, like from adrenal medulla to the brain, and in so these are the afferent nerve impulses. And the efferent nerve impulses, they convey information from the central nervous system to the adrenal medulla. Thank you. So these are the references for further reading, explanation, and the first one is linear biochemistry, the second one is comprehensive biochemistry by Longman, the third one is general biochemistry by Cleaner and Orton, the fourth one is textbook of medical physiology by Guyton and Hall, the fifth one is biological chemistry by Harper and Rowe, and I will suggest that if the students can get the textbook of medical physiology by Garton and Hall, so that will be a very good book for reading, for understanding, and for conceptual clearance of the topic. Thank you.